She'd crossed oceans in silence, earned every upgrade the hard way. But in this marble quiet, one smile from the lounge desk said, "You don't belong here. Quick one, before we get into it. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. And if you're here for dignity, fairness, and real accountability, hit like and subscribe." Now listen. The premium lounge sat behind frosted glass and brushed brass, tucked away from the chaos of the terminal, like a secret people paid to keep. Inside, everything was soft, on purpose. Soft lighting, soft piano notes, soft laughter that never got too loud. The kind of quiet that made you lower your voice without thinking. Marble floors shone like still water. Champagne flutes caught the light like tiny mirrors. A wall of windows looked out onto rain-streaked runways, where aircraft blinked in the distance like slow, sleepy stars. Nia Carter paused at the entrance and let her breath settle. Not because she was intimidated, because tonight mattered, and she could feel herself fraying at the edges. She'd been traveling for work since she was 21. Conferences, contracts, hard meetings in hard rooms, where people smiled with their mouths and doubted with their eyes. She'd learned how to move through airports like a professional, head up. .com face, always ready, but today had been long. In a way, airports could make you long. Delays that stacked like bricks. Notifications that came too late. A phone battery that seemed to drop faster the more she needed it. And underneath all of it, a personal weight she hadn't shared with anyone in the terminal. Tomorrow morning, she was due in another city to sign paperwork that would decide whether her company stayed afloat into the new year. If she missed the flight tonight, she didn't just miss a meeting. She missed a chance. Her whole life had been built on chances she had to fight for. So when her airline app finally flashed a rebooking confirmation and a lounge access pass in the same minute, it felt like the smallest mercy. Nia stepped forward. Behind the reception desk stood a young white woman in a tailored uniform, hair slicked into a neat knot, lipstick the exact shade of professional. Her name badge caught the light, but Nia didn't need it to tell her the vibe. This was someone who liked power, even in small amounts. The woman's eyes flicked to Nia's trainers. First, then her coat, then her face. The smile arrived late, and it didn't reach her eyes. "Good evening," Nia said softly, already holding out her phone. The screen glowed, boarding pass and lounge pass, stacked neatly. The woman took her time looking at it, like she was reading a menu she didn't trust. "And your membership?" she asked. "It's on the pass," Nia said. "Business class lounge access." The woman leaned closer, squinting a little too hard. She tapped her nails on the desk once. "We've had a lot of issues tonight." Nia kept her voice even. Issues. People screenshotting passes. People wandering in from economy. People claiming things. Nia blinked, then nodded slowly. "Right. That's not me." The woman's smile sharpened. "Of course, I just need to verify." She scanned the barcode. The machine beeped green dot. The woman didn't move. She scanned it again. Another beep, green again. She still didn't move. Instead, she looked past Nia over her shoulder, like she was searching for someone else who matched the pass better. Then she lowered her voice slightly and said, "Can I see some ID?" Nia didn't argue. She'd learned that arguing at desks like this never helped. She took out her passport and slid it across. The woman opened it, studied the photo, then studied Nia's face, like she was comparing to strangers. "Miss Carter," she read, slow. "Yes. And you're traveling alone?" Nia paused. "Yes." The woman nodded, as if that confirmed something. Then she glanced at Nia's wrist, her nails, her bag. "What do you do, Miss Carter?" Nia could feel the question land like a hand on her shoulder. Not curiosity, inspection. "I run a company," she said. The woman's eyebrows lifted slightly, like she'd been offered a plot twist she didn't believe. "What kind of company?" Nia could feel the lounge behind her, the hush, the scent of citrus and expensive coffee. She could also feel people listening without looking. "Tech," she said simply. Now, am I all right to go in? The woman's smile sharpened. One moment. She turned slightly, picked up a small headset, and spoke quietly, but not quietly enough. Hi. Could I get a supervisor to reception? Possible access issue. Possible access issue. Nia stood there, passport still open on the desk, like she'd been paused mid-scene. A man in a suit walked by and glanced at her for half a second, then looked away quickly, like her discomfort might be contagious. From inside the lounge, a soft laugh rose and fell. Nia's phone buzzed in her hand again. A reminder. Gate changes. Boarding in 40 minutes. She looked up and noticed something she hadn't before. Near the seating area, half hidden behind a tall plant, sat a passenger in a dark hoodie, hood up, head down, not drinking, not talking, just watching, in a way that didn't feel casual. As the hooded passenger shifted, a tiny pin on their chest caught the light, and for a split second, Nia saw what looked like a small glass dot. Like a lens, the hooded passenger's gaze met hers, then drifted away. Nia didn't know why, but the sight made her skin prickle. The receptionist turned back, headset still on. Can you step to the side while we confirm? She asked, smiling politely. Step to the side. The phrase was simple, but it carried a history. Nia had been living since childhood. Step to the side in shops. Step to the side at security. Step to the side when someone decided you needed extra checking. Nia moved because refusing would turn this into a scene, and scenes always cost black women more. She stood near a marble pillar and tried to keep her breathing steady. A few minutes passed, then the supervisor arrived. She was older, mid-40s, white, wearing the same uniform, but with a sharper cut. She didn't look tired. She looked entertained. What's the situation? The supervisor asked. The receptionist leaned in, whispering with the kind of smile people use when they're gossiping. The supervisor looked Nia up and down. Then she turned to the receptionist and said, not quietly, is she on the list? Nia's jaw tightened. I'm right here. The supervisor's eyes flicked to her. Of course, sorry. We just have to be careful. Careful. Nia held up her phone again. It scanned green. The supervisor took the phone, scanned it again. Green. She stared at the screen, then at Nia. You were rebooked, the supervisor asked. Yes. And you're traveling business class? Yes. The supervisor's smile grew, but it wasn't warmth. It was theater. All right, she said, handing the phone back. But do you have the physical boarding pass? We've had fraud. I have the app, Nia replied. We prefer physical, the supervisor said, as if stating a rule that had existed forever. Nia felt her patience thinning. I can print it. But the pass scanned green. The supervisor pointed toward a kiosk down the corridor, outside the lounge doors, and, she added, voice low, just so you know, we're very strict tonight, so please don't take it personally. Nia's eyes held hers. It's hard not to. The supervisor's smile didn't change, I'm sure. Nia walked out to the kiosk, printed the boarding pass, and came back, the paper still warm in her hand. When she returned, the supervisor and receptionist were talking again, heads close, smiling, like this was a shared joke. Nia placed the boarding pass down. The supervisor glanced at it, then leaned back slightly. And your card, she said. My card. Your lounge membership card, the supervisor replied. Nia stared. I don't have one. I'm on business access through the ticket. The supervisor's eyes narrowed just a touch. Then you shouldn't be here. The words hit like a slap. Nia's voice dropped. My pass scanned green 3 times. The supervisor shrugged. Systems make mistakes. People exploit them. Nia could hear her own heartbeat. You let him in, she said suddenly, gesturing toward a man who had walked in minutes earlier, wearing jeans and trainers that were far dirtier than hers. The supervisor barely glanced at him. He's a member. How do you know? The supervisor looked back at Nia, and the air turned colder. You can always tell, she said. The receptionist covered a small laugh with her hand, like it slipped out. Nia's hands curled around her phone. She didn't raise her voice. She wanted to, she didn't. "Are you saying I don't look like I should be here?" Nia asked very quietly. "Because I'm black?" The supervisor's expression shifted into something practiced. "Oh my goodness," she said. "Don't do that. Don't make it about that." Nia nodded slowly. "But it is." The supervisor sighed, as if Nia was being dramatic. "Look," she said, "if you want to use a quiet space, there are plenty of seats in the main terminal. In the main terminal, where the noise never stopped, where people slept on floors, where staff glanced past you as if you were luggage." Nia took a breath. "I paid for business class." The supervisor tilted her head. "Did you?" The question hung there, poisonous in its simplicity. And then, as if on cue, the receptionist glanced at Nia's phone screen and said, a little too loudly, "We also need to check. That's your ticket, and not someone else's screenshot." That's when something inside Nia cracked, not loudly, but cleanly. Not anger, not tears, just a cold clarity. They were enjoying this. They liked watching her prove herself. Nia looked around again. The hooded passenger by the plant was still watching, posture still hands folded, and again, Nia caught that tiny glass dot glinting, a lens. A camera. Nia's stomach tightened. Not fear. This time, something else. A sense that this moment wasn't as private as the supervisor thought. Nia's voice stayed steady. "If you're refusing me access, I want it in writing." The supervisor laughed once, short. "In writing?" "Yes," Nia said. "Write down that you refused. Lounge access to a passenger with a valid business ticket, and explain why." The supervisor's smile faltered a fraction. Then she recovered, and her tone turned sharp. "Security will escort you away if you continue." Nia blinked. "Escort me away? For what?" "For causing a disturbance," the supervisor said. Nia looked around at the quiet marble lounge, the soft piano. "What disturbance?" she asked. "I'm speaking." The supervisor tapped her headset again. "Can we get airport security to lounge reception, please?" A pause, then a crackle of response. Nia felt every eye lock onto her now, not even trying to hide it. A woman near the bar whispered, "Unbelievable," and shook her head as if Nia was the problem. Nia's throat tightened, but she refused to let her face show it. She thought about her mum, who always told her, "Keep your dignity, because they will try to steal it." She thought about tomorrow's paperwork. She thought about how tired she was, of being tired. The security officers arrived quickly, 2 of them. One looked uncomfortable, the other looked bored. The supervisor stepped slightly behind them, using them as a shield. "This passenger is refusing to comply," the supervisor said. "We suspect misuse of access." Nia stared at her. "You suspect? Based on what?" The board officer held out his hand. "Ma'am, can you step out of the lounge area?" Nia's voice shook just a little now, and she hated that it did. "I am not doing anything wrong." The other officer glanced at her boarding pass. "You're in business class." "Yes." He looked to the supervisor. "Then why can't she enter?" The supervisor's smile returned tight. "Because we have standards." Standards. Nia's eyes burned, but she didn't blink. That was the worst moment. The peak of it. Standing in a room built for comfort. Feeling smaller than a suitcase. Feeling her skin turned into a reason. She could feel the old shame, trying to crawl up her spine. Not because she'd done anything wrong, because they wanted her to feel wrong. Nia took one slow breath, then said to the security officers, "I want a manager, not a lounge supervisor, the airline duty manager." The supervisor scoffed. "She's being unreasonable." Nia looked at the uncomfortable officer. "Please." He hesitated, then nodded. "I can call duty." As he turned away, Nia's phone buzzed again. Boarding in 25 minutes. Her fingers trembled as she held it, and that's when she heard a chair scrape. Softly across marble, the hooded passenger stood up, slowly, calmly. They walked towards the reception desk, hands relaxed, as if they were simply stretching their legs. The supervisor glanced at them and smiled. "Instantly warmer, sir," she said, voice sweet. "Can I help you?" The hooded passenger paused beside Nia, just close enough that she could smell rain on fabric, like they'd come in from outside recently. Then the passenger reached into their hoodie pocket. For one heartbeat, Nia thought, "Here we go. Another person, about to tell me to calm down." Instead, they pulled out a small black wallet and flipped it. OPENA badge flashed under the lounge lights. Not airport security, not police, an airline crest above clean lettering, ethics and compliance. The supervisor's smile froze. In place, the receptionist's face drained of color. The supervisor's mouth opened, then closed. The ethics officer turned slightly, angling their chest, and Nia saw it clearly now. That tiny glass dot, a body camera. Still recording, the ethics officer looked at Nia, gentle, for the first time in this whole scene. "Miss Carter," they said, "I'm sorry you've been put through this." Then they looked back at the supervisor, and their tone turned clinical. "What you didn't know," they said, "is that this lounge is under a live service audit tonight. Multiple entry points, multiple cameras, multiple witnesses." The supervisor swallowed. The ethics officer continued, calm as a metronome. "We've captured the initial interaction, the repeated scans showing valid access, the request for unnecessary ID, the changing conditions, and the escalation to security. We've also captured the comment about being able to always tell who is a member." A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats now. Someone near the bar lowered their glass slowly, as if the sound might suddenly be too loud. The supervisor tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. "This is ridiculous. We're just enforcing policy." The ethics officer nodded. "Great. Then policy will support you." They turned to one of the security officers. "Can you ask the airline duty manager to come here immediately?" The board officer's posture changed. "Yes, sir." The supervisor's eyes widened. "Now hang on." The ethics officer's gaze stayed steady. "No, you hang on." There it was. The power shift. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simply real. The supervisor's authority had been built on people assuming she belonged behind that desk. Built on the comfort of never being challenged. Built on the belief that her version of events would always be believed first. And now it wasn't. Now there was footage. Now there was oversight. Now there were consequences. Walking in wearing a hoodie, Nia exhaled, and only then realized she'd been holding her breath for minutes. The duty manager arrived quickly, tie slightly loosened, face tight with concern. The supervisor rushed towards him. "This passenger has been disruptive," she began. The ethics officer held up one hand. "Before you speak, I need you to understand. This is an audit." The duty manager's eyes flicked to the badge and widened. "Right," he said, instantly serious. "Understood." The ethics officer turned their body camera slightly. "We can review the footage, but the summary is this. Valid passenger access was denied. Criteria kept changing. Escalation occurred without cause. There are indicators of discriminatory bias." The duty manager's jaw clenched. He looked at Nia. "Miss, I'm very sorry." Nia's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "I just wanted to sit down for 10 minutes. The duty manager nodded, shame in his eyes. "You should have been able to—" He turned to the supervisor. "Step away from the desk." The supervisor's face flushed. "You can't do that." The duty manager's tone went cold. "I can, and I am now." The receptionist looked like she might be sick. The supervisor stepped back, eyes darting, searching for someone to rescue her. But the lounge had changed. People were no longer watching Nia like she was a spectacle. They were watching the supervisor like she was a problem. One woman, the same one who'd smirked earlier, stared down at her hands now. Embarrassed, the duty manager gestured to a staff member Nia hadn't noticed before. A tall man with kind eyes and a neat uniform. "Marcus," he said, "please escort Miss Carter inside. Get her settled. Make sure she has what she needs. Then coordinate her boarding. Priority." Marcus nodded, respectful, of course. He turned to Nia, with warmth that felt like sunlight after a storm. "This way," he said softly. As Nia walked into the lounge, the marble floor no longer looked like a mirror for judgment. It looked like a floor, plain and harmless. Marcus guided her to a quieter corner near the window, a seat that faced the runway lights, the rain, the moving world outside. He set down a glass of water in front of her without asking. Like he could see, her throat was tight. "Do you need a charger?" he asked. Nia blinked, then nodded.
"Yes, please."
He handed her one. "You're all right. Take a breath." Nia's shoulders finally dropped. Her hands shook as she plugged in her phone, and then, against her will, a tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed. Marcus shook his head gently. "Don't. Not here. Not after that. You don't have to pretend." Nia let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in her chest for years. Across the lounge, the duty manager spoke in low tones to the ethics officer, and the supervisor stood off to the side, arms tight to her body, eyes hard and frightened all at once. The receptionist sat down behind the desk, staring at nothing, as if reality had finally caught up. Nia stared out at the runway. Rain drifted in sheets across the glass. Planes moved slowly like huge patient creatures. Her phone buzzed again. "Boarding in 15 minutes. Marcus returned. "They're moving your gate closer. We'll take you through staff route to avoid delays." Nia nodded, voice still fragile. "Thank you." Marcus hesitated, then added quietly, "You didn't do anything wrong." Nia looked at him, and something in her face softened. "I know," she whispered. "That's what makes it worse." Marcus nodded like he understood exactly as they stood. A woman from the lounge approached Nia, older, maybe late 50s, elegant scarf around her neck. She held out the scarf. "It's chilly by the gates," she said, voice gentle. "And I'm sorry, I didn't speak up sooner." Nia took the scarf slowly, surprised. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. That tiny act of kindness hit almost as hard as the humiliation did, because it reminded her the world could change in seconds, depending on who chose courage. "Now, quick question for you. If you were in that lounge watching it happen, would you speak up or stay quiet to avoid attention? Tell me honestly in the comments." Marcus guided Nia towards the exit as they passed reception. The ethics officer caught Nia's eye. "Miss Carter," they said, "if you're willing, we'd like a formal statement later, but only if you want to. Tonight, your flight comes first." Nia nodded, throat thick. "I'll do it." The ethics officer's expression softened. "Good. Not because we need it, because accountability needs a voice." At the corridor, the duty manager stopped Nia briefly. "We're upgrading your return flight as well," he said, "and issuing compensation, and the lounge staff involved will be suspended, pending investigation." Nia didn't feel joy at that. She felt something quieter, relief, not vengeance. Relief that someone, finally, was saying this was wrong. She walked with Marcus through a staff corridor, away from the public glare, away from the stairs. The airport noise faded into a distant hum. They reached the gate with time to spare. Nia stopped, turned, and looked at Marcus. "I appreciate you," she said simply. Marcus nodded. "Safe travels." Nia stepped onto the plane when her group was called out. As she walked down the aisle, she felt eyes on her, but this time it didn't feel like judgment. It felt like ordinary human noticing, the kind that doesn't try to reduce you. She found her seat, placed the scarf on her lap, and looked out the window. Rain still fell, but the runway lights cut through it like a promise. When the plane began to move, Nia closed her eyes for one moment and let herself feel it. The truth of the night, that dignity isn't something you beg for, it's something you stand in, even when people try to push you out of it. And fairness, real fairness, isn't a speech, it's accountability, quietly arriving in a hoodie, recording what people think they can get away with. As the aircraft lifted, the city lights below blurred into a soft gold haze. Nia opened her eyes and watched the clouds swallow the terminal. The lounge, the desk, the supervisor, all of it. And for the first time that day, she breathed like she was free. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes dignity matters. Drop a comment with where you're watching from, and tell me what you would have done in that lounge. And stay close. More stories are coming, and they always end with real accountability.